Close your eyes and picture a street in 1973. Terraced houses line both sides, their front doors painted red and blue. The pavement is warm under bare feet. Somewhere down the road, a group of children are chanting a rhyme you almost remember. The scrape of chalk on concrete, the snap of elastic against skin, the cold weight of a glass marble pressed into your palm. No screens glowed in pockets, no parents hovered at the curb. The streets belonged to you, and every game you played there shaped the person you became. These were the games of a generation, 12 of them to be exact. And most children today have never even heard their names. If you remember the thrill of a playground empire won and lost in a single throw, wait until you see number 3 in our list. But first, let us start where every game began, on the pavement outside your house. Welcome back to the channel. If these memories mean something to you, hit that subscribe button and join thousands of others who remember when childhood was lived outside. Drop a comment and tell us which game you played the most. Now, let us step back to where it all began. Number 12, Hopscotch. Every pavement in Britain knew this game. From the cobbled streets of Manchester to the council estates of South London, chalk grids appeared like magic each spring. You would find a flat stone or a bit of broken tile, and that was all you needed. The rules were simple. Throw your marker, hop through the squares, and do not lose your balance. But nothing was ever truly simple. Arguments erupted over whether your foot touched the line. Accusations flew when someone picked up the wrong stone. A 2023 survey by Play England found that only 12% of children today have ever played hopscotch. In the 70s, it was as common as breathing. Those chalky squares faded with the rain, but the memory of standing on one leg, arms stretched wide, heart pounding as you reached for square 10, that never washed away. Some games tested your balance, others tested your nerve, and the next one on our list had children trembling before they even took a step. Number 11. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? This game turned every playground into a theater of suspense. One child stood with their back to the group, playing the wolf. The rest crept closer with every answer. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Each step brought you nearer to danger. Then came the words that sent everyone screaming. Dinner time! Suddenly the wolf spun round and chaos erupted. Children scattered like startled birds across the tarmac of school playgrounds from Leeds to Bristol. The thrill was not in winning. It was in that frozen moment before the wolf turned. Your heart hammering against your ribs, your feet ready to fly. Primary schools across Birmingham and Liverpool echoed with those screams every break time through the early 70s. Today, many schools have replaced unstructured play with organized activities. Mr. Wolf has been forgotten, but those of us who played still remember the electric terror of those two words. Speaking of terror, some toys in the 70s were genuinely dangerous. The next item on our list left bruises on arms across the nation. Number 10. Clackers. In 1971, every child in Britain wanted a pair of clackers. 2 heavy acrylic balls connected by a string with a ring in the middle. You put your finger through the ring and swung them until they smashed together above and below your hand. The noise was incredible. That rhythmic clack, clack, clack drove parents absolutely mad. But children were obsessed. Woolworths could not keep them on the shelves. Then the injuries started. The balls shattered on impact, sending sharp plastic flying. Bruised wrists and bloodied knuckles became badges of honor in playgrounds from Glasgow to Cardiff. By 1976, many schools had banned them outright. The Consumer Product Safety Commission in America banned them in 1985. Here in Britain, they simply faded away, replaced by safer distractions. But if you owned a pair of clackers, you remember the sting of those balls against your forearm and the strange pride of mastering the rhythm. Not every game left bruises, though. Some required a gentler touch, the kind of precision that separated the skilled from the hopeless. Number 9. Jacks. This game went by many names. 5 stones in the north, knucklebones if your grandmother taught you, dibs in parts of Scotland. The equipment was simple. 5 small metal stars or stones, and a tiny rubber ball. You would throw the ball into the air, scoop up the jacks, and catch the ball before it bounced twice. It sounds easy until you tried it. Girls dominated this game in most playgrounds, though boys played too when no one was looking. The game dates back thousands of years. Children in ancient Rome played with actual sheep knucklebones. By the 1970s, the metal jacks came in little cloth bags sold at corner shops for a few pence. A 2019 study found that fine motor skill games like jacks have almost completely disappeared from modern playgrounds. Children now swipe screens instead of scooping stones. Those who remember jacks remember the scrape of metal on concrete and the satisfying weight of all 5 stars landing in your palm. From stones in your hand to balls against a wall. The next game required rhythm, coordination, and a brick wall that did not belong to a grumpy neighbor. Number 8. 2 balls against the wall. This was a girls' game according to the unwritten rules of the playground, but those rules were made to be broken. You needed 2 tennis balls and a wall. Ideally, the side of the school toilet block or the back of the corner shop. The game was a kind of juggling. You threw both balls against the wall in rhythm while chanting rhymes. 1, 2, 3, O'Leary. 4, 5, 6, O'Leary. Plainsy clapsy, round the world tabaxy. The rhymes varied from town to town. In Nottingham they sang different words than in Plymouth. The actions got harder as the song went on. Under your leg, behind your back, spin around, and catch. A 2021 Nostalgia survey found this was the most forgotten game of the 70s. Fewer than 8% of respondents under 40 had ever heard of it. But in 1974, the thud of tennis balls against brick was the heartbeat of every girl's playground across Britain. Rhythm games had their place, but when the final bell rang and you spilled onto the streets, different games took over. Games that needed space, games that needed freedom. And if you think 2 balls against a wall was the peak of 70s entertainment, wait until we reach number 4. Number 7. Kick the can. This was hide and seek with consequences. 1 empty baked bean tin placed in the middle of the street. 1 seeker guarding it while counting to 50. Everyone else scattered into gardens, behind bins, up trees if you were brave enough. The twist was beautiful. If you could sneak back and kick that tin before the seeker caught you, everyone who had been found was freed. The clatter of that can against the pavement was the sound of rebellion. Children played this on the streets of Salford and the cul-de-sacs of suburban Kent. It required courage, timing, and the kind of neighborhood where adults did not mind children running through their hedges. A 2018 report found that 78% of British children now play outside less than once a week. In the 70s, kick the can could last until the streetlights came on. Sometimes longer if your mum was not watching. Street games needed streets, but playground games needed nothing more than a piece of elastic and 2 friends willing to stand still. Number 6. French skipping. Nobody knows why it was called French. The game had nothing to do with France. What it needed was a long loop of elastic, often made from dozens of knicker elastic bands tied together. 2 children stood inside the loop, stretching it around their ankles. A third performed increasingly impossible jumps while chanting rhymes. England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Inside, outside, puppy dogs' tails. The elastic rose higher with each round. Ankles, knees, thighs, waist. By the time it reached waist height, only the most athletic could manage. This game swept through British playgrounds in the late 60s and dominated the 70s. Girls in Coventry and Newcastle spent entire lunchtimes perfecting their routines. The snap of elastic against bare legs left red marks that lasted for hours. Today, you can still buy French skipping elastic online, but the playgrounds are quiet, the rhymes forgotten. The skill lost to a generation who never learned that the best games needed nothing but imagination and a bit of string. If French skipping tested your agility, the next game tested something deeper. Your courage, your cunning, and your willingness to stay out past tea time. Number 5. 40-40 home. This was hide and seek evolved. 1 person guarded a base, usually a lamppost or a specific tree. They counted to 40 while everyone hid. But here was the genius. You did not just hide. You had to race back to base and shout 40, 40 home before the seeker spotted you and beat you there. The tension was unbearable. You would crouch behind a garden wall as dusk settled over the rooftops, watching the seeker patrol, waiting for your moment, then sprinting with everything you had while screaming the magic words. Children played this on the streets of Wigan and the estates of East London until darkness made it impossible to see. It taught strategy, patience, the art of reading an opponent. These were lessons no classroom could provide, and when you made it home, touched that lamppost, shouted those words, there was no feeling like it. But there was one street game that has become almost impossible to play today, a game that required something most streets no longer have: silence and space. This one might bring tears to your eyes if you remember it. Number 4. Kirby. All you needed was a football and a road with curbs on both sides. You stood on opposite pavements and took turns throwing the ball at the opposite curb. Hit it cleanly and the ball bounced back to you. Catch it and you earned a point. Then you could step into the road for bonus throws, first to 21-1. Simple, perfect, and now almost extinct. In the 1970s, cars were rare on residential streets. You might pause a game once every 20 minutes for a Ford Cortina to pass. Today, those same streets are lined with parked vehicles. Traffic passes constantly. In 2007, 2 boys in Kilsyth were threatened with antisocial behavior orders just for playing Kirby outside their home. A neighbor complained about the noise. The police were called. The game was over. For those of us who remember summer evenings spent perfecting our aim under the fading light, Kirby was not just a game. It was proof that the streets once belonged to children. Now we enter the final 3. These are the giants, the legends, the games that defined what it meant to grow up in 70s Britain. And they all share something in common. They are almost gone. Number 3. Marbles. This was not just a game. This was an economy. Every child carried a tin or a cloth bag filled with glass spheres. Clear ones, swirly ones, the prized cat eyes with their colored centers. Steelies that some said were cheating. Playgrounds became trading floors. Alliances formed and collapsed over marble debts. The game itself was simple. Draw a ring in the dirt. Place your marbles inside. Take turns flicking your shooter to knock them out. But the stakes were real. Play for keeps, and you could lose your entire collection in a single bad shot, or win a fortune. In 1972, the World Marbles Championship finally allowed girls to compete for the first time. The game had been played in Britain for centuries. By the late 70s, it was fading. Today, most children have never held a real glass marble. They do not know the weight of it, the way it catches the light, the hollow feeling in your stomach when your best cat eye rolls out of the ring and into someone else's pocket. If marbles taught you about loss, the next game taught you about survival. Number 2. British Bulldog. This was war. One child stood in the middle of the playground. Everyone else lined up at one end. The goal was simple: run to the other side without being caught. If the bulldog tackled you, you joined them. The game continued until only one runner remained. It sounds innocent. It was not. British Bulldog became an excuse for scores to be settled. Bigger children targeted smaller ones. Grudges from the classroom played out in violent collisions. Scraped knees turned to split lips. By the early 1980s, school after school banned the game. Health and safety concerns ended what had been a playground tradition for generations. In 2015, some schools attempted to bring it back with softer rules. Tag instead of tackle. But veterans knew the truth. It was never about the running. It was about the moment the bulldog locked eyes with you across that concrete expanse, the pure animal fear, and the explosive relief when you made it through. We have reached the end, the final game, and there could be no other choice for the top spot. This game belongs to Britain like tea and rain and complaining about the weather. If you grew up in the 70s, this game marked the turning of the seasons, the arrival of autumn, the end of summer freedom, and the beginning of something just as magical. Number 1. Conkers. Every September, the horse chestnut trees dropped their treasure. Children descended on parks and roadsides across Britain. From the leafy streets of Hampstead to the industrial edges of Sheffield, the hunt was on. You searched for the biggest conker, the hardest conker, the one that would make you a champion. Then you drilled a hole through the center, threaded a piece of string, and tied a knot. You were ready for battle. 2 players faced each other. One held their conker steady while the other swung. The crack of shell against shell echoed across playgrounds. A winning conker became a owner, beat another, and it became a tour. Some conkers reached legendary status. 10ers, 15ers. There were cheating methods passed down like sacred knowledge. Soak your conker in vinegar overnight. Bake it in the oven for 10 minutes. Coat it in clear nail varnish. These tricks were hotly debated and vigorously denied. In 1917, children were asked to collect conkers for the war effort. Scientists believed they could help make explosives. The plan failed, but it proved how deeply this simple game had rooted itself in British culture. Today, some schools have banned conkers, citing safety concerns. But the bans were never government policy, just individual caution spreading like a quiet disease. For those who remember, the smell of a fresh conker split open is the smell of autumn itself, of new school terms and darker evenings, of friendships tested and champions crowned in the dying light of October afternoons. These 12 games were never just ways to pass time. They were universities of the street. They taught negotiation and courage and how to lose with grace. They built friendships that lasted decades and rivalries that made you stronger. They belonged to a world where children roamed free and parents trusted the neighborhood to raise them together. That world is harder to find now, but the memories remain, burned into everyone who lived them. Which of these games do you remember most? Which one makes your heart ache for those simpler days? Tell us in the comments. Share this video with someone who played alongside you, someone who remembers the weight of a conker in their pocket, or the sting of elastic on their legs. Subscribe if you want more journeys down memory lane. And next time you pass a horse chestnut tree in autumn, stop for a moment. Look down. The conkers are still falling. The game is waiting. All it needs is someone to remember how to play.